That's a big Twinkie. Yeah, usually I cut the video off for my opening quote, but that didn't happen this time. But anyway, good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City and here for another audio commentary. Tonight, I decided to make a very special double feature tonight because we lost director Ivan Reitman in February. In fact, I had to be reminded of it about a couple weeks ago, and I thought to myself, you know what? I should do a double audio commentary for Ghostbusters and Stripes. So I will be doing Stripes later tonight at 11 p.m. It will be on a different stream on my same channel, but it'll just be on a different stream. But first, we are going to do Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters is 105 minutes. And like I said, I've seen it many, many times. I saw it as a kid many, many, many times. And we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things about this movie that I was actually quite surprised to learn about just recently. But, given the fact that this is now a cultural phenomenon and, there's now a massive franchise with, associated with Ghostbusters, and that it's hard to look at the original, I think, in any other eyes through the filter of the past 35 years, and considering how much we've gotten since then. I mean, to think in 1984 Ghostbusters was such a radically original idea, particularly for a comedy. And there's a lot of things about Ghostbusters that I love, and it's certainly, considered one of the best films of 1984 by most people, and we'll go into that as well. But like I said, tonight is purely for dedication to director Ivan Reitman, who, of course, directed Ghostbusters with Bill Murray and Harold Ramis. 2 years before that, they had done Stripes, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to be doing that later. But we're going to do Ghostbusters first, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun here. So at any rate, I'm paused at the Columbia Pictures logo. Make sure your volumes are down and everything. And we will go ahead and get started on the count of three. All right. So 3, 2, 1, and play. Watching Ghostbusters, directed by Ivan Reitman. I've always liked the Columbia Pictures logo ever since watching those old Three Stooges shorts. And this, in 1984, this and The Karate Kid were two massive hits for the studio. Now, I'm always taken aback at how eerie the music is going into this thing. I mean, as we open up here on the exterior of the New York Public Library, and yes, this was actually filmed in New York. We'll talk about that. But this is probably a set. I'm willing to bet that this is a set and not the actual New York Public Library. I mean, a lot of the exteriors were definitely done in New York City, but as we'll find out later, the shooting of New York turned out to be a rather chaotic one. But Elmer Bernstein's eerie score this really does open up like a horror movie, a genuine horror movie with the ominous music and everything, and it works perfectly. I mean, imagine seeing Ghostbusters in a sneak preview. I mean, would you think it was a horror or a comedy at this point? I mean, that's the thing. These opening 4 minutes perfectly set the tone for the rest of the movie. And it's funny is that Columbia Pictures, they were smart enough to not say, from the guys that brought you Stripes, on the poster and everything. They wanted this to be kid friendly, obviously, even though there's aspects of it which are not necessarily PC and or kid friendly, like with the cigarette smoking. We'll talk about that as well. But at any rate, I mean, the tension is brewing in this underground library. This always felt like an underground library to me. I don't know. It's just the way it's way it's done, obviously. And here we have, of course, Ray Parker Jr.'s very famous song, which, of course, he was sued by Huey Lewis for taking the basically the same rhythm, I guess, as "I Want a New Drug," which was a 1983 song that he did. Now, I wonder how many people always miss that on the door. It says "Venkman Burn in Hell," which was probably, I don't know who put that on there, is anyone's guess. And here we have this. We have that opening, which is pure horror, and now we have a character introduction, which is just pure comedy. Of course, the great Bill Murray playing Dr. Peter Venkman here, who it's funny if you go to the if you ever go to the clips, you know, the movie clips that they have on YouTube. The first comment is Venkman's theory is actually being proven before his eyes. However, his eyes are averted. The male subject gets closer to the correct answer with each shock. The blonde has Pete's full undivided attention. Exactly. And see, the thing is that the guy on the left, whose gum just shot out onto the, is that he may actually have ESP, and but Venkman doesn't care. He does not care. He's. I mean, I've also read other comments on it that said, oh yeah, this is just how, you know, university professors did it in the 60s and 70s. They would conduct these surveys or these experiments just to, get with some pretty students. You know, that's all they would do. This is great. But these used to be called Zener cards, and let's see, just one. Yeah, and Zener cards are used to conduct experiments for extrasensory perception, or ESP. Perceptual psychologist Carl Zener designed the cards in the early 1930s for experiments conducted with his colleague, parapsychologist J.B. Rhine. The original series of experiments has been discredited, and replication has proven elusive. Well, basically, they're known today as ESP cards. And the good news is that you can now own your own officially licensed Ghostbusters ESP test cards. Uh, yeah, I mean, you can Google it. I mean, apparently this is a real thing. Anavos Superior Quality ESP Test Cards World of the Psychic with Dr. Peter Venkman. And they have all the symbols on all the cards. Unlock your inner psychic potential with Anavos Superior Quality ESP Test Cards. This deck is based on the cards used by Dr. Peter Venkman to conduct experiments for extrasensory perception. These cards are simple, easy to use tools for discovering and refining your psychic abilities. Anavos is proud to offer the Ghostbusters ESP Test Cards. This deck will enable you to perform mentalism, parapsychology, and even magic tricks. Standard bridge size playing cards and cellophane wrapper. 10 sets of 5 symbols plus wave, star, circle, square for a total of 50 cards. 3 instruction cards. And watch World of the Psychic with Dr. Peter Venkman on WKRR TV 12 Sunday evenings at 10 p.m. Yeah, they decided to go all out for that one when it was really just a joke. But so, what is the genesis of Ghostbusters? What's the Big Bang, theory behind how this came to be? What was its creation? Originally, I mean, Dan Aykroyd, as most people know, Dan Aykroyd actually originally wrote the script, which was a lot more elaborate, apparently, in its original form. I mean, there was time travel involved, and Columbia was kind of like, you know what, let's make this a bit more realistic and earth-based, keep it within the confines of a city like New York City, instead of, actually, I mean, like, and from a studio standpoint, you would think, well, we can use ideas for that for a sequel. Well, that didn't necessarily happen, but and originally this movie was supposed to star not Bill Murray, but rather John Belushi. the Saturday Night Live legend who, of course, co-starred with Dan Aykroyd, who's in the green shirt there. Um, starred with Dan Aykroyd in the Blues Brothers in 1980. Now, while Aykroyd and Belushi were making the Blues Brothers, after that they also made a movie called Neighbors, directed by John G. Avildsen, who later directed The Karate Kid, which was a black comedy which basically failed with critics and audiences. I mean, everybody hated it, and sadly, it was one of Belushi's last movies because he died of a drug overdose in 1982. And so this project kind of went into turnaround a little bit at that point because Bill Murray and director Ivan Reitman and they had worked together on Meatballs, which was a Canadian production in 1979, which was a big hit, and it's a summer camp movie. And honestly, I can't stand summer camp movies, partially because of the fact that I hated being at summer camps. That is just me personally. But the only summer camp movie I have in my collection is actually Little Darlings from 1980 with Christy McNichol and Tatum O'Neal. I mean, that's just one I can't let go of. But otherwise, I cannot stand summer camp movies. And I tried watching Meatballs. I tried watching it. As much as I love Bill Murray and Ivan Reitman, I could not get through it. I just could not get through it. I mean, I'm sure others are more appreciative of film than I am, but and as a franchise, I think that the Meatballs franchise stinks. I mean, try watching the third film with Patrick Dempsey, who has to be coached by Sally Kellerman to get laid when he's working at a marina. Yes, that is that actually happens in Meatballs 3. But anyway, don't want to go too far off of that. But anyway, so I mean, director Ivan Reitman and Bill Murray made Meatballs, which was a modest hit. And then in 1981, they were hired by Columbia to basically direct Cheech and Chong Go to the Army. And that, of course, eventually became Stripes, which, of course, we'll talk about later during the Stripes commentary. But Columbia basically asked Harold Ramis, who, of course, had not only co-wrote Animal House, but he had also directed National Lampoon's Vacation and Caddyshack, starring Bill Murray. They asked him, look, could you refine this crazy script that Dan Aykroyd wrote? So there wasn't necessarily any joint writing between Aykroyd and Ramis. They kind of wrote and refined the script at different times. I mean, Aykroyd essentially came up with the whole idea because he's into, paranormal and aliens and everything, as people are very well know. But I got to recommend Dan Aykroyd's vodka, his Crystal Head Skull vodka. Ever since I saw the Red Letter Media review for Ghostbusters 2016, I had to try it, and I did. And I even went so far as to got some Ecto Cooler and made Ghostbenders. Now, for a comedy, these effects are really elaborate. I mean, we don't normally see these kind of, first class special effects in these in comedies of this nature. Usually, I mean, effects are usually saved for like action films or science fiction films, but not for comedies. I mean, and this was a rarity at the time where you had to employ these big budget special effects. I mean, Richard Edlund was in charge of the effects, and he had to create his own studio for all this. Yeah. Anyway, let me say hi to some people in the chat here. We have Edwin Roman. Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was a companion of sorts to Poltergeist. I can see that. I can definitely see that. Yeah. Awesome, Joe Bob. Thank you so much. The title says comedy. Yes, the title, in fact, says comedy. Ray Parker's only number one. Yep. All right, top 40 a deck. How you doing, Cable Channel 11? Love Ghostbusters. Does Bicycle still make the cards? I believe they do. I believe they do. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I do believe they do. Yeah. The scene that took me off guard first time watching it was the spiritual blowjob. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to this. That's what I'm saying. I mean, this movie is kid friendly. I mean, Dan Aykroyd gets a blowjob by a ghost. I mean, well, see, it has that post Stripes, vulgarity in many ways. I mean, some critics complained at the time that there still was that residue of that humor that not all critics appreciated for Meatballs and Stripes and everything. But I think this does eclipse those two films in every way. I mean, just in terms of comedy and taste and but I mean, just an originality. I mean, in 1984 there was just nothing like that. Love Meatballs and Meatballs 2 is a guilty pleasures. Little Darlings never seen but heard of. Yeah, Little Darlings is a film that not many people talk about. It's actually more well known as being one of Matt Dillon's first movies than anything else. I mean, he actually became a bigger star than the two leads, but it also has an 11-year-old Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City as a garden hippie. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there because I'm sure some people will think at this point, oh my God, Little Darlings, that sounds so creepy. And look, I mean, it's about two girls. It's about two 15-year-old girls, one rich, one poor, who bet to lose their vulgarity at summer camp. But it actually is very honest about it from a girl's point of view. I mean, it was written by two girls. So, I mean, it has a lot more. It's more sensitive in terms of coming of age issues with regard to young women than you would expect in an otherwise American Pie style comedy. But it is very original. Mm-hmm. Ghostbusters 2016 can kiss my ass. Yeah. We'll talk about the franchise here because I just, well, see, I mean, Bill Murray right here in this scene is about to talk about, the franchise rights will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams. And of course, the irony of that is that Bill Murray was the one that actually put off making a sequel. He took off acting for 4 years after Ghostbusters was such a massive hit, which, I mean, you would think that, with audience demand and of course with studio demand, that they would have enabled him to, get back there to make a sequel. But no, he was in Europe. He was, he was just doing his own thing, and he didn't give a fuck. I mean, a lot of people hate Bill Murray for not doing a sequel. I'm in the Bill Murray camp. I mean, like I said, I mean, can you imagine any Ghostbusters sequel or anything topping this? I just can't. I just can't. I mean, they saved the world at the end of the movie. We can't do that every single movie. You know what I'm saying? I think they should have been more clever and subtle about it. But, I mean, Ghostbusters 2 is okay. And there's really only one thing I want to share about Ghostbusters 2 will be much later. Because I honestly, when it comes to the franchise, I only think of this movie. I have respect for the television series from the 1980s. I watched it as a kid. I don't have any interest or ambition to check it out again. And I understand that Ghostbusters 2 was meant to be more of a amalgamation of both the show and the original movie. But look, I'm sorry. I'm with Jay Bowman. I wanted a sequel to the original movie. I'm a purist like that. not to incorporate, ideas and eccentricities from the animated series, but that's what they did. And yeah, I can't stand the 2016 movie. I honestly can't. It's very unfunny to me. I don't think I laughed once. I watched the extended cut of Answer the Call, and I didn't laugh once. How you doing, Dying Breed? Hey, Dan. Always great to see you. Thank you for coming out. Yeah. And yes. What About Bob is still my favorite of Bill's. Dinner scene is cough-inducing funny. Oh, I love What About Bob, man. You know what? I mean, here's the thing about Bill Murray is that uh, probably his most underrated movie and his most underseen movie, which is a shame, is it's a movie he co-directed in 1990 called Quick Change, and also a brilliant New York comedy because the joke in the movie is that Bill Murray, disguised as a clown, robs a midtown bank. He robs a midtown Manhattan bank, and the robbery turns out to be a piece of cake. I mean, it's like the easiest thing in the world to do is a cakewalk. But the joke is that he and his accomplices, played by Gina Davis and Randy Quaid, they can't seem to get out of the damn city. I mean, like they have to deal with cab drivers that can't speak English. They have to, deal with gangsters that are standing in their way. The exact change, bus drivers demanding exact change and everything. I mean, it's a very New York style comedy, but it's brilliant. I adore Quick Change. I mean, and I love most of Bill's movies. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Caddyshack. I've seen Caddyshack, countless times. I can laugh at that all day. I love Stripes. Or again, I mean, not to repeat myself, we'll be doing Stripes later tonight at 11. But I'll watch practically anything with Bill Murray. I mean, and interestingly enough, I even like his dramatic stuff almost as much as his comedic stuff, because in 2005 he made a movie called Broken Flowers, written and directed by Jim Jarmusch, which had him receiving a letter just out of the blue one day saying, "You have a son, that I birthed 18 years ago that's now looking for you," and so Bill Murray plays like a Lothario who owns like a computer company, but we never see him at work. And he basically gets this letter, decides to go meet 4 ex-girlfriends who he may think may have sent the letter. One of them being Sharon Stone, of all people. A very illuminating movie, which here again, I don't think many people have seen. And funnily enough, the only reason why Bill Murray agreed to do Ghostbusters was so they can finance a adaptation of W. Somerset Maugham's The Razor's Edge, which was a pet project of his. It was kind of a labor of love for him, which also came out in 1984, distributed by Columbia Pictures. I have never seen it personally, but after finding out that Bill Murray would only do Ghostbusters if they funded Razor's Edge, I got to see it. But I also have to see the original Razor's Edge from 1946 with Tyrone Power, released by 20th Century Fox. And it's about a World War I veteran. And I think a lot of people didn't take it seriously because of Murray's deadpan, shtick. I don't know. Like I said, I gotta watch The Razor's Edge at some point. I really do. Both versions. Now, Dan Aykroyd, of course, came from Saturday Night Live. I mean, the Blues Brothers, and he also did Trading Places right before this with Eddie Murphy, which is another favorite from that era. And here we have the lovely Annie Potts. I love Annie Potts. I love her in this movie. I love her character in this. I mean, just no nonsense. The way she flirts with Egon it's just so charming. I mean, she has that line coming up here about also play racquetball. Like, oh yeah, I'm kind of looking for somebody to racquetball with me. I mean, would you be interested in that? And and of course, Egon is basically like, oh no, I collect spores, molds, and fungus. Annie Potts is also a Canadian actress, and I've only seen one movie that she did before this, but it's a significant one in her career. Um, I gotta double check the title of it because it's kind of a generic title, and like I said, not a lot of people have heard of it. It has her and Margot Kidder from Superman. Okay, it's called Heartaches. Well, Heartaches is a Canadian movie that very few people in the States have ever heard of. But what's significant about that movie is that Annie Potts and Margot Kidder both won Genie Awards for Best Actress. They both won awards for it. So, and it's a good little film. I mean, Annie Potts, is on a bus to Toronto, she's pregnant, which her husband, an auto mechanic and aspirin race car driver, is delighted about. However, Stanley is unaware that he is not the real father of the baby, and Bonnie is seeking abortion. On the bus, Bonnie meets Rita, played by Margot Kidder, a free-spirited itinerant between jobs. The two women become friends and decide to get an apartment together in Toronto, eventually finding jobs at a mattress factory. Dealing with romance and poverty, they learn that they have more in common than they thought. It's a lovely little Canadian movie that they both won awards for. So, but this was really Annie Potts' big break. Now, even bigger, of course, is Sigourney Weaver right here. Now, everybody knows Sigourney Weaver from the Alien series, and the Alien series, of course, had kicked off in 1979, 5 years before this. So, look, everybody knew Sigourney Weaver was from Alien, but she had made a couple of movies in the interim. She actually made her debut in a Woody Allen film of all, Annie Hall, film in 1977, which won Best Picture. She's in the movie, but she's such in an extreme long shot near the end as Woody's date at a movie theater. You can't even tell it's her. It's too much of a long shot. But apparently that was her. But yeah, that was her debut. Yeah, so after Alien, she had done a 1981 movie with William Hurt called Witness, and then she did The Year of Living Dangerously with Mel Gibson, and then also Deal of the Century in 1983. So, and Year of Living Dangerously is actually a really good Australian movie that got Best Supporting Actress for Linda Hunt. Those movies were not hits, and I think Ghostbusters, when that came along, it hit at the perfect time for Sigourney Weaver's career because, as we all know, 2 years later she would be in Aliens, and she would be nominated for movies like Gorillas in the Mist and Working Girl, and she would eventually do Ghostbusters 2. And then Alien 3, 1492, Conquest of Paradise. Well, actually, my favorite performance of her non-Alien is probably Galaxy Quest. That's a great. You don't have to be a Star Trek fan to enjoy Galaxy Quest. I mean, that movie's awesome. It's so awesome. But I love Bill Murray's performance in this movie, even if I'm sure there are people that certain lines of dialogue, which was probably improvised. Some people may think they're appropriate or whatever, but there are moments where Murray is serious in this movie. There are moments where he is dead serious. They're subtle. Like I said, they're very subtle, but they're there. He's not a constant goofball. And of course, he's trying to con himself, in almost everything, and he almost doesn't care about the science or the results or whatever. He's more interested in getting with Sigourney Weaver, but at the same time, like I love this moment right here, like this small moment where he's questioning about the equipment and whether it works or not. I mean, he's not joking around there. He's not joking around. Well, now he is, but but yeah, I mean, I love Bill Murray in this movie. He's such a huge reason why this movie was as much of a success as it was. But at any rate, we'll be seeing Sigourney Weaver again in the Avatar movies coming out in the next few years. Avatar: The Way of Water, and then whatever Avatar 3 is called. I will not be seeing them personally because I hated Avatar. I'm probably the only person on the planet that walked out of the theater when I saw Avatar, and Weaver wasn't the problem. It wasn't the problem. It was basically because it was it was totally Dances with Smurfs, and I found it very, very insulting how many properties James Cameron pillaged to come up with that story. And in Ghostbusters 2, they do all this all over again. Ghostbusters 2 is essentially the same as Ghostbusters 1 in terms of plot. And of course, they modify the characters to make them more like the characters in the television series, which, here again, I mean, that kind of bothers me. I don't mind Ghostbusters 2, but it's half of what the original is. It's just, there's no comparison almost. See. Oh, so after they bust Onion Head, Slimer, pay attention to Egon's hand motions to Peter. Oh, okay, definitely. Busting makes me feel good. Oh, yes, Ben Grimm, absolutely. Um, Also, Bill Murray almost eats it jumping over the swinging door when Dana shows up. Yeah, he does. You can tell, absolutely. If you haven't checked out Annie Potts and Corvette Summer, Mark Hamill also stars. Yep, that's 1978. Yep. I'm on that boat too, Stone. I hated Avatar. To me, Avatar was Hulk writes Pocahontas. Yes. Yes. I can't agree with that any oh god, that is yeah. Mhm. And here we go. Here's the very famous Ecto 1 with the with the emergency lights on top that are all blue and the logo on the side and everything. Classic stuff. Cleaning up the town. There's a band called the Bus Boys, and they're also prominently featured in the Eddie Murphy comedy 48 Hours. They did a lot of, they were huge hits at the time. They did a lot of songs for big movies like this. In fact, I think they even contribute two songs to the soundtrack here, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Harold Ramis, they weren't necessarily all like good buddies at this time, but I think they eventually grew to be very comfortable with each other and respect each other as guys in show business that are doing these comedy films and everything. But I mean, they were in the same parties. Let's put it this way: they were definitely in the same Hollywood parties. But then again, I mean, this was, of course, a collaboration because Dan Aykroyd wrote the initial script, Harold Ramis, brought it down to earth and everything. Bill Murray, of course, he stole the show more often than not with his improvisation and his flippancy. But yeah, it's the combination of these three guys and their talents which make this movie as special as it is. The 2016 movie didn't get it. It just didn't get it. It's not. The idea is very, very creative and original and special and everything. But a lot of the success of this movie is because of these three characters and what these actors bring to these characters. It's not necessarily the tech or the idea of, oh yeah, you can go out and shoot ghosts or whatever. The in this movie, the comedy is not relied upon the effects or the technology. It's all about character and reaction. It's all about character and reaction as opposed to special effects and whatever. Even though the effects in this movie still hold up beautifully, I mean, seriously, this is one of my favorites. Yeah, successful test. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can do more damage that way to split up. Exactly. I mean, I can see audiences in 1984 just being totally on board for this and just having a blast. Um, See, casual smoking, like all the Ghostbusters in this movie are smoking. Did they ever smoke cigarettes in the second movie? No, they didn't. I mean, they're schlubs. They're exterminators. They, whatever. I love he just lets the cigarette fall out of his mouth and he doesn't bother looking, taking care of it or putting it out or anything. It's just, well, he's in that much shock at this Slimer thing. uh, how do you think Ghostbusters would have done with Belushi instead of Murray? You know what? That's impossible to answer, of course. I mean, John Belushi, he still has a hardcore fan base, and the thing is that I think that people, because of his unfortunate drug death, his overdose due to a speedball, I think it's kind of overshadowed, how funny he was in real life and how funny he was, on Saturday Night Live and the movies that he'd done and everything. I am personally not the biggest fan of Animal House, just because I'm not a fan of fraternities in the same way I'm not a fan of summer camps. Uh, but I mean, look, I mean, John Belushi, he still rocked the house in that movie. And, same way with Blues Brothers, literally in Blues Brothers. But he only made a couple other movies. I think Continental Divide and also Neighbors, which also had Dan Aykroyd as well. I mean, uh, it's impossible to say. He and Murray have such different comedy styles that it's hard to imagine. It really is hard to imagine. I would think that it would have been just as big a success. I mean, who knows? Maybe Belushi wouldn't have been a right fit for the role. I don't know. I don't know. But Belushi was still a big enough, a huge name at the time. And I'm sure that box office success would have been guaranteed. But yeah, it's impossible to say. It's definitely one of those, uh, if only, See, I can't believe you saw that woke Buster Stone. You got more balls than me. Look, it's not it wasn't the comedians. It wasn't the women. It was just why do the exact same thing all over again? Um, but this time we'll just try to improvise every single line of dialogue and everything. uh, it was a disaster. And I like some other movies by some of those people. I mean, I love Spy with Melissa McCarthy and Jason Statham. That was the last movie I thought I would love, and I actually ended up loving Spy a lot. But that's just not the right fit for Ghostbusters, I think. I mean, and I will say that I did see Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yeah, it was written for Belushi. That's very true. Dan Aykroyd initially wrote the script with Belushi in mind as Peter Venkman. But okay, true. This is absolutely true. I tried watching Afterlife. I tried. Unfortunately, the cynicism just got to me a bit too much with Afterlife. I mean, uh, the whole Harold Ramis ghost and everything. It was just too much. It was too much for me to swallow, man. I just uh, that's the thing. I mean, as a franchise, I think Ghostbusters it just suffers from I don't know. 1984 with this movie, here again, they ended up saving the world. Now, I mean, that guarantees a franchise. I mean, and I think this series was actually the right way to go, and because just because of the fact that Bill Murray refused to do a sequel for so many years. Which here again, I respect him completely for. The flowers are still standing. that line is, that's just classic right there. But I just with this movie, I don't think that any sequels should have been made. I don't think you could have improved upon this. I really don't think you could have been improved upon this. I mean, and Ghostbusters 2 was just a bit too contrived for my liking. I mean, even as a kid, I was just kind of I recognized a lot of the same beats from the original, and yet at the same time, it wasn't half as funny or half as original or half as creative, and it just I don't know, it just got too silly for its own good. This movie has a semi-serious horror tone, which I think is perfectly balanced out with a comedy. Sort of like how Evil Dead is to that particular franchise. But I'm just not a fan of the other Ghostbusters movies. I'm just not. And I particularly hate the 2016 one, which I mean, I can't imagine Afterlife being as unbearable as 2016, but at the same time, I couldn't continue with it. I didn't even care. I just didn't care at that point. Well, since they just burned up all the rest of their petty cash, of course they got to. I don't want to say overcharge, but I mean, like, oh yeah, we have a special on proton charging and storage of the beast, and then yeah, that's and we'll just put it right back in there. Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, sure. And of course, they got to clean up the room themselves, of course. Now, here we have this legendary montage of, their business is booming, in New York. I mean, they're actually getting phone calls. They're actually getting very successful at what they're doing. Now, this guy is talking about a spectral locomotive which would rocket past the farm where she grew up. Well, that locomotive is actually later in Ghostbusters 2. Ghost Fever Grips, New York. I love all these fake, magazines and newspapers. And Columbia did this the same thing to the movie Tootsie, which came out a couple of years before, when it shows Dustin Hoffman is becoming a huge star on television as a female hospital administrator on a general hospital type show. Larry King, the late Larry King. Dan Aykroyd actually appeared on Larry King's show and shared a shot of his Crystal Skull vodka. Uh, do ghosts have civil rights? uh, I'm not sure if that joke would play well today as well. I kind of just noticed that. That was on the magazine. The lovely Annie Potts. Just why? Why did they have to change so much stuff in terms of Annie Potts' character in the sequel? It's just unbelievable. Ghostbusters Super Diet. Princess Di is expecting again? Oh man. Now, okay, this woman who this ghost, of course, that was about to give Dan Aykroyd the blowjob. That was the same woman that was in the opening of Romancing the Stone, and she was a Playboy Playmate of the Month, I think, in 1981, and she's also in the beginning of Romancing the Stone. Angelina, who kills Ted White, who of course was Jason in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. In the opening of Romance in the Stone, which is another one of my favorites from 1984. I did an audio commentary on that earlier in the year. And of course, here is Ernie Hudson as Winston Zedmore. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the Winston Zedmore character. Like, is he a Ghostbuster? Is he not a Ghostbuster? Look, I'm going to end that discussion by saying that, look, he is definitely a Ghostbuster. He eventually becomes a Ghostbuster, and he eventually becomes part of the team, even though, like he said right there, if there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say. It's one of the most famous lines in this movie. Ernie Hudson had been in a number of films from the 70s and 80s, but a lot of them aren't very good, to be perfectly honest, and a lot of them weren't hits at all. And this role, I believe, was originally meant to. I think they were talking about Eddie Murphy at one point for this role. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, but he had a hit this year with Beverly Hills Cop. That would have been interesting to see Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd back together from Trading Places, though. That would have been interesting. That would have been interesting. I got to admit. Winston is a Ghostbuster. I will not hear such hearsay. Exactly. Heresy. Yes, I agree. I mean, but at the same time, there's been a lot of debate about his character, because even he has always had a mixed reception about his own character. And in the commentary for Ghostbusters 2, with Red Letter Media, which I highly recommend, they talk about how in the original, the inclusion of his character is meant to, translate the science to the audience, and that his role is, it comes off some kind of outdated joke that they made an argument that he did not belong in the second movie, but I just think that's harsh, man. I mean, no, I mean, he is a Ghostbuster. I love him just as much as all the other three guys. I mean, he just doesn't come in until halfway through the movie. I mean, we can't. And you know what? You want to be cynical about the money thing and say, oh, yeah, he's just doing it for the paycheck. I mean, look, I mean, he sticks around, so obviously he got a raise. But I'm just upset that they could have done more with his character. And from what I understand, in the original script, that his character is given more to do and more to say. And of course, you would think, well, if Eddie Murphy was doing that character, of course, oh my God, I mean, who knows what we would have gotten out of that. But I love Ernie Hudson in this role. I love practically every single line that he delivers in this movie. Unlike the second movie, which, they just don't have anything for him to do. I mean, I wish that, see, another point they make on that RLM commentary is that, they could have done something more with his character in the second movie. Like they could have made him do the grunt work and like made him do all the, the marginal tasks or whatever. They could have done something. But I do love Ernie Hudson, and I do love the character. But Ernie Hudson, my favorite Ernie Hudson role will, of course, always be the cop in The Crow, where he actually got to play opposite Brandon Lee, and on screen he actually asked him, "Are you a ghost?" And I love how Brandon Lee goes up to his face and just says, "Boo." Former Ghostbuster actually asking the late Brandon Lee if he's a ghost. Ooh. That's an epic moment, I think. Absolutely epic moment. Love Tootsie. Can't tell it was Dustin Hoffman in drag. That's amazing it was, and looked like Kathy Whitmore, who was the mayor of Houston, Texas at the time. Oh, okay. That's where that joke came from. Okay, thank you so much, Joe Bob. And also, Bill Murray was also in Tootsie. He played Dustin Hoffman's roommate, and I loved it how like Dustin Hoffman is sifting through all his clothes, trying to figure out what to wear when he meets Jessica Lange at her father's farm. And Bill Murray just says, "You know what? I think we're getting into a weird area here." He is brilliant. I mean, Bill Murray is brilliant in everything, but in that movie, he did not take a check. He was unbilled in Tootsie. He was, for some reason, he just declined payment. I guess he just did it as a favor, but that's a pretty significant supporting performance. Now, here we have William Atherton, Bill Atherton, I believe that he's more well known as in the industry. And most people know him now. I think, well, I don't know. I think that people know him equally from this as well as Die Hard. where he plays the television reporter that goes a little too far in documenting the quote unquote terrorist event at the Nakatomi building. Uh, he's just in both movies, in this and Ghostbusters, he plays such a Slimer. He's the real Slimer of this movie, I think. He's Slimer in human form, essentially. And you know what? I think a lot of people can make the argument, well, look, I mean, the EPA has actually every right to be concerned about what the hell they're doing at this place. But at the same time, if you really think about it, Peck is really the villain of the movie. At first, I was willing to argue that Peck is the antagonist and that Gozer is the real villain. But no, Gozer is just doing what I think any normal god would want to do. Almost, I mean, because that was already like planned and everything from the get go with all those meetings and everything that they used to do. But I think Peck is the real villain because once he shuts down the reactor in that later scene and all hell breaks loose, that's all his fault. That's all on him, man. I remember when they did the Twinkie promotions a couple years ago for the 2016 movie. What about Twinkie? Now, we're about to enter the second act of the movie. We're getting close to the 49-minute mark. For anybody who wants to join in, yeah, we'll be going to the 49-minute mark here. Excuse me one moment. Mm. Mm. Well, like I said, this is Elmer Bernstein's music, and I love how he changes the type of music with every scene. Like, he can be ominous, he can be playful, and everything. His score, top to bottom in this movie, is brilliant. And he also did the score for Stripes, which we will, of course, watch a bit later. But, yeah. Oh, Elmer Bernstein was actually born on my birthday. Interesting. But Elmer Bernstein has been doing scores since 1955. He did Frank Sinatra, The Man in the Golden Arm, and he was part of the Hollywood Blacklist for a while in the 1950s. But he did receive an Academy Award for Thoroughly Modern Millie in 1967, and he also received 7 Golden Globe Awards, 5 Grammys, and 2 Tony Award nominations. And he also did movies like The Great Escape, HUD, True Grit, My Left Foot, The Grifters, Cape Fear, Far From Heaven, and also Animal House, Meatballs, Airplane, The Blues Brothers, Stripes, Trading Places, Spies Like Us, Three Amigos. Yeah, Elmer Bernstein has quite a career. But of course, this is one of his more famous scores. Whenever I watch Ghostbusters, I always watch it through the end credits just to listen to Elmer Bernstein's score and the other songs on the soundtrack. And like the Karate Kid, this was a fairly big soundtrack at the time, largely because of the Ray Parker Jr. song. Yeah, I think it was at this moment in Afterlife, after like 15 or 20 minutes, when they deliberately homaged this scene in Afterlife. I think I was pretty much done at that point. In the words of Mike Stacklasa, Ghostbusters Afterlife was like a nostalgia bukkake. And that's exactly what it was. It was, oh God. And they just had to make everything all sentimental and all that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just too cynical for a movie like Afterlife. What I saw was definitely better than anything in 2016, though. Now, you know what? We haven't talked about Rick Moranis yet. Oh, I missed Rick Moranis in the movies. I mean, I know everybody does, but I mean, uh, yeah, love Rick Moranis. I mean, and I love him in this movie. I mean, he's so funny. I mean, his character is annoying. I mean, the way he, is constantly flirting on Dana Barrett, like, say, yeah, I'll give you a call and everything. I kind of talked over his first scene there. I apologize, but look, Rick Moranis. I mean, I remember when I went to see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in the theaters in 1989. And he, of course, by that time was already huge because of the two Ghostbusters movies, but also, Spaceballs and Little Shop of Horrors, which also had Bill Murray in a cameo. Bill Murray had the Jack Nicholson role from the original Little Shop of Horrors, where he thrives on dental pain. And he's constantly going to Steve Martin, and no matter how vicious Steve Martin is with his dental equipment, Bill Murray just wants more and more and more. All right, who brought the dog? Yeah, those effects still hold up. They still hold up. They don't come off as cheap either. They really don't. They actually spent a lot of time working on these effects, both practical and optical. No CGI. Oh, I miss the era before CGI. I really do. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, well, we did. I mean, we got a remake of The Thing of all movies. I mean, a prequel, excuse me, and it just wasn't the same thing with all the CGI effects. Just wasn't the same thing. Rick Moranis, such a he was in a Canadian movie. Well, I mean, a lot of actors here are Canadian, believe it or not. But he was part of SCTV, and he made a movie called Strange Brew, which is, I mean, every Canadian knows what Strange Brew is. It's a Canadian beer comedy. Uh, he, I mean, the way it opens up, it has the MGM logo with the lion, and then the camera comes around, and we actually see Leo the lion being shot on set, and that sets the tone for that comedy in every way. I mean, I love Strange Brew with Rick Moranis, but unfortunately, he retired in the mid 1990s, and he just wanted to spend time with his family, and you know, I we got to respect that. I mean, he has different reasons than Bill Murray, not to be want to continue in the Ghostbusters franchise. But I mean, what's going to be the future of Ghostbusters at this point? I think that's going to a very valid question, because Afterlife underperformed, and of course, 2016 was a massive bomb, and for good reason. Um, where are they going to go from here as far as Ghostbusters are concerned? I don't know. I guess you could do a television series, maybe do a live action series as opposed to an animated series this time. But I mean, here again, I adore this first movie so much, even if it's not even my favorite movie of 1984. But this is a perfect time to mention that. Okay, so this was shot in New York City, obviously. And the shoot, it lasted, at least 6 months and everything. 1983 going into 1984. This movie, Ghostbusters, opened up on the exact same day as Joe Dante's Gremlins. These two iconic horror comedies, and they were both released on the same day in 1984. Gremlins, I don't know why Warner Brothers didn't have the balls to try to release Gremlins over the holidays, over Christmas, which I think would have been a more appropriate release time for that, or maybe even in October, right before Halloween. But yeah, Ghostbusters and Gremlins opened up on the same day, and Ghostbusters did better. I mean, it made about twice as much as Gremlins. Let's keep it real here, but it did better than Gremlins virtually everywhere in the United States, except for New York City. No joke. Well, and you're probably thinking, why? What? I mean, Ghostbusters is set in New York City. It's an iconic New York movie. Well, look, evidently, and look, every New Yorker I've told this to has said, you know what? Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. The reason why Gremlins did better than Ghostbusters in New York City is because New Yorkers were so pissed at their traffic being stopped for months when they were shooting the movie. Now, if you live in New York, that makes so much sense. You know, you don't screw with New York traffic. You just don't screw with New York traffic. So there was a lot of disdain when Ghostbusters came out in 1984 in New York City. I mean, everywhere else it did great. It did great. People loved it. But in New York, there was still a lot of anger towards Ghostbusters. So more New Yorkers went to see Gremlins. I mean, I can understand that. I can totally understand that. I actually learned that on the Gremlins audio commentary with Joe Donne and the producer Mike Fennell. I mean, it's just amazing to me that Gremlins actually did better than Ghostbusters in New York City. But no, it makes perfect sense. You don't screw with New York traffic. You just don't do it. And of course, Gremlins 2 would later go to New York City in 1990. I love Gremlins 2. I like it a lot better than Ghostbusters 2 in terms of these these sequels. But yeah, Ghostbusters and Gremlins came out on the same day in July in 1984. Pretty amazing. I mean, Rick Moranis acting opposite a horse. Totally believable. Totally believable. I make the deals. You want to ride? And believe me, there are a lot of assholes in New York City. Trust me, there is a lot of assholes. Dropping by or picking up, or dropping off and picking up. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, they bring crazies to the Ghostbusters house. Yeah, yeah, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Are you the gatekeeper? uh, we'll talk about Harold Ramis a lot more during the Stripes commentary because I think I even prefer his character in Stripes, believe it or not, even though he's wonderful here. You see on the TV in the background, you see the image of the quote unquote dog image. Lives on Central Park West. Now, see, I mean, it's just weird because in Ghostbusters 2, Janine actually gets with Louis Tully. I mean, what happened to the romance between her and Egon? I don't get it. Many Shubes and Zools knew what was to be roasted in the depths of the slore. I can tell you that day. I mean, okay, I'm sorry. I should be talking. I'm just enjoying the performances a bit too much right now, but that is true. Yeah, Dr. C.D. Death, that's very, very true. John Candy was supposed to be in the Rick Moranis role. Originally, it was supposed to be John Candy. Yep. Now, I like this little line right here. I think we can get her a guest spot on Wild Kingdom. I have never seen Wild Kingdom. All I know is because of movies like this and The Breakfast Club that people used to watch Wild Kingdom back in the 1980s. So, look, that's one of the few jokes that is dated from this movie, even though this is a very, very 1980s movie. I mean, it's New York in 1984. All I'm saying, this is really 1984 New York City in every way. What they tell Rick Moranis, just do weird things, just give him this and give him that, just do weird things, smell the popcorn. Yeah, Sigourney Weaver became famous because of a Ghost franchise and an Alien franchise. I mean, hey, you can't do any better than that. I mean, you can't do any better than that, as far as I'm concerned. Hmm. Weirdly enough, I mean, I Dan Aykroyd is probably my least favorite Ghostbuster. I, there's not really any particular reason for that. I just think that he's not as funny as the other three guys, or even as likable. I think in the second movie, he's actually given a little bit more good stuff to do. But Dan Aykroyd is also not my favorite actor amongst this ensemble here. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe the reason we've been so busy lately is because the dead have been rising from the grave? Yeah. I like little Ernie Hudson moments like that. Yep. Lovely shot of the bridge going into Manhattan and everything. And the Twin Towers there in the background. It's weird watching these old movies and you see the Twin Towers pop up in the background there. And Walter Peck is about to lay down the law. Yeah. Like I said, New York has a lot of assholes. Always in the pan and scan VHS prints, I never saw Janine on the left side, on the right side with a coffee. I always just saw the three guys just coming down the hallway, but I never noticed Janine on the right side until I saw the widescreen print. Funnily enough, Columbia Pictures actually really screwed up with the VHS of Ghostbusters 2, because not only was it pan and scan, it was also letterboxed. I mean, I mean that's the thing. It's unwatchable, I think, at that point. Excuse me for just 1 second here. I'll be right back. That's a pretty serious warning. Don't shut it off. Yep. But of course, this is going to cause nothing but chaos here. But yeah, can you imagine John Candy in the Rick Moranis role? I can't. I mean, John Belushi I can see in the Bill Murray role, but I can't see John Candy in as. I mean, can you see John Candy flirting with Sigourney Weaver in the hallway? I mean, can you imagine that? One thing I forgot to mention. There was a scene earlier where Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver were talking by a fountain after she got out with this composer, I think this violinist or whatever. That violinist is supposed to be the father of Sigourney Weaver's baby in Ghostbusters 2. I don't think a lot of people, except like diehard Ghostbusters fans, know that. But yeah, that guy is essentially the father of the child, because she and Bill Murray obviously had a falling out just so they can repair the relationship and start all over again. But yeah, these effects, they still hold up for 1984. They really, really do. When I watched this again last night, I was like, damn, these effects are great. They are just amazing. Okay, I think Ron Jeremy is there on the screen all the way to the left. All the way to the left. That's Ron Jeremy. That is the real porn star Ron Jeremy. What the hell is he doing in this movie? Anybody's guess. Okay, I can't speculate aside from the fact that he was just on set that day and he was an extra. And he was doing porn at that time, believe me. But now he may spend the rest of his days in prison for, sexual abuse and misconduct and everything. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what, as far as I know, he's already been convicted. He's already been convicted and sentenced to prison. So that's it for Ron Jeremy the Hedgehog. I believe it's magic, magic. See, I was trying to look up at the soundtrack. And I'm not talking about the Elmer Bernstein score. I'm talking about the actual songs on the soundtrack. Yeah, the Bus Boys, they did Cleaning Up the Town. The Alessi brothers did Saving the Day, which we're going to hear in a bit here. Thompson Twins. So yeah, they also did 16 Candles. Air Supply, I Can Wait Forever. Laura Branigan, Mick Smiley, Elmer Bernstein, and of course the Ghostbusters song by Ray Parker Jr. I've heard that song so many times, I'm almost sick of it by now. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way right now. Let me go to this right here. I wanted to talk to you about, here again, my mixed feelings about Ghostbusters 2, and I think that this sums it up perfectly. Because I know that there's a lot of people that love Ghostbusters 2 for understandable reasons. Okay, I can understand. I mean, it showcases all the guys together again, and it's regardless on whether it repeats the same beats as the original, fine. But I just don't love it. I would give it, like I said, I would give it a 2.5 out of 5, approximately half of what the original is. And a lot of sequels are like that. I mean, a lot of the sequels are to me 50% of what the original is. But I wanted to share this with you. Want to make this movie Ghostbusters 2 instantly turn straight insane? All the slime in the film is actually a stand-in for blood. You have the two murderers who issue forth from the vial of blood in the courtroom. All the blood becomes animated when people get their blood up, so to speak. If the blood is on their clothes, they get angry and almost come to blows. You have the shot with the blood flowing out of the museum doors, just like the blood issuing from the elevator in The Shining. On top of that, you get a river of blood under the city, which is similar to the one Dante finds in hell, under the city of Dis, that burns up and submerges violent murderers. We with our faithful escort onward moved, along the brink of the vermilion boiling, wherein the boiled were uttering loud laments. People I saw within up to their eyebrows, and the great centaur said, Tyrants are these, who dealt in bloodshed, and in pillaging. Here they lament their pitiless mischiefs. Here is Alexander and fierce Dionysius, who upon Sicily brought dolorous years. And Cain said to Abel his brother, Let us go forth abroad. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and slew him. And the Lord said to Cain, Why is thy brother Abel? And he answered, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said to him, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth to me from the earth. Cain murdered his brother out of envy at the acceptable sacrifice he made to God. The Ghostbusters murder Vigo, the guy in the painting, in the midst of what they perceived to be unacceptable sacrifices and whatnot. Certainly Cain would have perceived Abel's sacrifice as unacceptable. With this analogy, believe it or not, you can then get a spooky parallel with the French Revolution. The French Revolution was born out of a specious cry for liberty and the blood of untold numbers of opponents who perished famously by the blade of the guillotine. In one instance, even, some of the architects of the revolution christened a lady of the night the goddess of liberty and took her to a church where they put her on the altar. Ghostbusters 2 concludes with our heroes spraying a lady of liberty with blood. This blood gives her life, and this goddess trounces the bland, superstitious, vague, medieval European bad guy and his altar back to Europa. As slime, the movie makes no sense. But when it becomes blood, it becomes so much twisted sense you want to cry yourself to sleep every night for the rest of your life. The villain of the story is completely Dracula, and Peter McNichol is just Renfield, right? He's the guy that actually says, oh, I'm from the Upper West Side. You know, McNichol actually played Renfield in Brooks's Dracula Dead and Loving It. In this, like, the Ghostbusters themselves become weird vampires who offer the blood of the dead to their weird liberty goddess. They are the ones practicing human sacrifice to a Kali-like goddess, and their evils are projected onto almost non-existent Vigo. Dan Aykroyd even transforms into Vigo right at the end to give you a clue who the real villains are. So that little thing makes sense now, and it also ties into and makes the bizarre scene in the first film where Aykroyd has sex with a ghost for no apparent reason makes sense. I think anyone will agree that Ramis and Aykroyd vampired the blood out of the Ghostbuster concept for the sequel, so I'll just extend their vampirism to other areas. Plus, Egon has sex with blood even. Yeah, when I read that, and that's an anonymous post I saw on RLM's commentary comment section, I thought to myself, you know what? I actually respect Ghostbusters 2 a little bit more now. I actually definitely respect it more now. Why is Reginald Vell Johnson always a cop? Yeah, he was in the prison cell earlier there, and he's actually billed as Reggie Van Johnson. So we now have two actors that would later appear in Die Hard. William Atherton, who plays Walter Peck here, and Reginald Vell Johnson, who later plays John McClane's ally on the ground in Die Hard. Yep. And the mayor in this movie would come back for the second movie for virtually the exact same scene. I mean, like I said, Ghostbusters 2 just bothers me because it's literally almost the same script. It literally is almost the same script. But then again, I just shared with you that entire explanation that, hey, they actually had a foundation for what they were doing. So when you imagine the the slime as being blood, it makes a lot of sense what Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis were doing with the sequel. So I actually respect it a little bit more now, even though I still don't think it's all that good. I've only been with the company for a couple weeks, but I got to tell you, these things are real. Since I joined these men, I have seen shit that'll turn you white. I love Winston Zedmore. I mean, yeah, they could have given him one or two more great lines, but look, I mean, I think almost every line he has is hilarious. It's just this ordinary guy who's just trying to make a paycheck. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And I love Dr. Venkman's ability to win over the mayor here by saying, "Look, you will save the lives of millions of registered voters." Yeah. When are the midterms again? Because that's all politicians give a shit now. They only give a shit about fundraising and midterm elections. They don't give a shit about the people. They just want to get their checks from their owner donors, in Washington. I'm going to get you a nice fruit basket. I'm going to miss him. And evidently, from what I've read, is that William Atherton, after this movie, he was constantly being called dickless on the streets, which, of course, added, much consternation. I wanted to give William Atherton a little bit more attention here because I remember back in the 1970s. Well, I wasn't in the 1970s, but I remember a movie that he did in 1975 called The Day of the Locust, which is this John Schlesinger movie set in Hollywood in the 1930s with Karen Black. But he started out in 1972. In a movie called The New Centurions, and he was also in Class of 44, the sequel to Summer of 42. And then he was also in Steven Spielberg's first theatrical movie called The Sugarland Express with Goldie Hawn. He played Clovis Michael Poplin in that movie. And then eventually he did Looking for Mr. Goodbar. But what's interesting is that between Looking for Mr. Goodbar in 1977 and Ghostbusters in 1984, he didn't make any other movies. He made 6 movies or 7 movies in the 1970s, and then he took a 7-year break, and he came back for Ghostbusters. Very, very interesting. But he was also in Real Genius. He was in both the first 2 Die Hard movies as Richard Thornburg. He was also in The Pelican Brief, Biodome with Stephen Baldwin, The Crow's Salvation, of all movies. And let's see, The Girl Next Door, The Citizen, Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, and Jersey Shore Shark Attack. I'm sure Jersey Shore Shark Attack is very high on his resume, but he's still with us. He's 74 years old. Yeah. But he's known primarily for being in the original Ghostbusters and the first 2 Die Hard movies. And here are the Ghostbusters about to save the day. We are at for anybody that is just joining us or wants to join in, we are now about 1 hour and 21 minutes left as we enter the 3rd act of Ghostbusters, which some critics at the time thought this 3rd act was over the top, that it went a little too far or whatever. Well, the thing is that, I mean, here again, I go back to my original question of how can you top something like this? I mean, they end up saving the world at the end. I mean, what more can you do? I mean, have them save the universe? I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, Ghostbusters 2 had the idea of bringing back this, Vigo the Carpathian, who evidently does have a connection with Zool and Gozer in this movie. I'm not going to get into that. I mean, all that Ghostbusters lore, I'm not even going to try to figure it out. But they do, evidently the 2 villains in the first 2 Ghostbusters, they do have some kind of spiritual connection. Maybe somebody in the chat could elaborate on that, and that would be appreciated. Oh yeah, they can survive anything. Yeah, nobody gets killed in this movie. Nobody dies. I mean, nobody even gets seriously injured in this movie. Although they have to do take a sample of Rick Moranis' brain tissue, and that sounds that sounds intimidating. Needless to say, this is a great hard edit, going from the cheers outside to inside the building. This movie actually had a couple of editors: David E. Blewett and Sheldon Kahn. And the cinematography was done by Laszlo Kovacs, an Hungarian cinematographer with quite a resume. I wanted to share that real quick as well. He started out in the 1960s. He did a movie we're going to talk about tomorrow night called Targets from 1968. Tomorrow night, I'll be doing a double feature commentary for What's Up, Doc and Targets. That'll be at 9 p.m. tomorrow night, by the way. But he also shot Easy Rider. He won the Golden Laurel Award for Dennis Hopper's Easy Rider. And he also shot Five Easy Pieces, directed by John Ford. He also did Paper Moon, the Peter Bogdanovich film Paper Moon, Shampoo, At Long Last Love, Nickelodeon. He also shot New York, New York, The Legend of the Lone Ranger, Francis the Toy, Mask, and Say Anything. And I thought he did. No, that wasn't him. No. And one of his last movies was actually Miss Congeniality, of all things. And he also shot 2 Weeks Notice, the movie with Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock. But that was that was pretty much his last theatrical movie before passing away in 2007. But yeah, I mean, especially in this 4K version that I'm watching, I mean, the effects really do they really do look gorgeous. I mean, honestly, at this point, I can't tell that this is a 1984 film. I adore all these effects. I mean, the redness in the background, in the sky, the city in the bottom, which could have easily been a matte painting. I honestly can't tell, but it still looks amazing. As they go up and try to take care of this Sumerian god, not Babylonian, Sumerian. There's a big difference here. This is one of the gem lines of the script, courtesy of Bill Murray, of course. Okay, so she's a dog. Okay. I mean, you want to call this over the top, fine. Fine, whatever. I think it works. I mean, that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people in 1984 were prepared, like, oh my God, they have to save the world literally at the end of the movie? Yeah, they do. They weren't expecting this, I don't think. But they don't let the comedy overcome the special effects. Now, see, this actress playing Gozer, I had to mention here real quick. Just 1 second. Gozer the Gozerian is an eldritch entity revered by the Hittite, Mesopotamian, and Sumerian cultures who appears as the first film's main antagonist, known by many titles that include the Destructor, the Destroyer, Vulgus, Zildjiar, Lord of the Sublia. I mean, I just love how far they go with this. Scourge of the Glestaments and the Traveler. Its base form being an androgynous woman, leading it to being typically being identified as female, and possesses numerous abilities at its disposal. Its coming preceded by increased paranormal activity and the disruption of natural forces. As briefly mentioned in the film and fully covered by the 2009 game sequel, Gozer had a following on Earth around 6000 BC before being banished by the Babylonian goddess, excuse me, Tiamat, following a protracted conflict between their followers. Via its chief minions, Terror Dogs, Zul the Gatekeeper, and Vince Clortho the Keymaster, Gozer can enter into another reality and offer those witness to its arrival to choose an avatar from known as a Destructor before proceeding to destroy that plane of existence, as it did in one dimension, a Torb, an electric eel-like creature, and in another, a Slore, a reptilian humanoid that produces venomous ectoplasmic substance that conduct psychomagnetheric energy. In the 1920s, cult leader Ivo Shandor and his followers set up Gozer's coming to Earth while predicting years that a cross-dimensional rip would occur. It occurs years after Shandor's death as the Manhattan Cross Rip of 1984, when Zul and Vince Clortho opened the portal for their master to emerge from the rooftop temple of 550 Central Park West, actually 55 Central Park West. Being vaporized by the Ghostbusters upon arrival, Gozer uses Ray's accidental thought to assume its destructor form of the Stay-Puffed Marshmallow Man before being banished back to its realm when the Ghostbusters fired their crossed proton streams on the gateway. And Gozer does return in Afterlife, as many people know. And that's what I'm saying. They had to go back to Gozer. They had to go back to the same thing that fueled the original. I mean, I can't help but be cynical about all of the other films in the Ghostbusters franchise. I can't help it. I really can't help it. I mean, like I said, I didn't watch Afterlife in full, but I'm sure it has its moments. I'm sure it does, but I couldn't watch Harold Ramis as that ghost anymore. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Time to choose the form of the Destructor, and as I just stated, Dan Aykroyd chooses the Stay-Puffed Marshmallow Man, and I saw clips of the Walmart with the American flag outside in Afterlife. Like, seriously, guys, really? Like, with the Stay-Puffed marshmallows coming to life and everything, and I was like, no, thank you, no, thank you. I can't deal with that. I just can't. I'd rather have the Ghostbusters smoking than go to a Walmart. I just, yeah. Now, I do remember as a kid, I do remember having the Ghostbusters toys. I mean, I had the gun with the foam on it and everything with the proton pack. I had that. And I remember watching the show. The memories of the animated cartoon are very, very vague. They're buried in the back of my mind. I mean, I remember enjoying the show, and I remember it being a little bit more darker than the average animated programming of the time. But honestly, I couldn't elaborate on anything more than that. I'm sure if I was going to revisit the show, I would enjoy it for the most part. But I'm just not a fan of animation, and I just don't know if going back to Ghostbusters the show would make me appreciate the franchise any more than I already do now. Because, like I said, I just think it's the first movie, and then that's it. I mean, I'll leave the other three films well, I'll leave Ghostbusters 2 and I'll leave Afterlife to those who love those movies. But I don't know. The 2006 movie was just unbearable. I thought it was so unfunny. So unfunny. And, it's kind of a shame because they kind of screwed Ivan Reitman going behind his back to make that. I mean, the producer and everything. During the whole Sony leaks, it was discovered that they basically went behind Ivan Reitman's back to do this remake. Which even in the trailer, they could tell that they had no idea what they were doing because they said, "Oh yeah, in 30 years ago, 4 scientists saved New York." That's already wrong. Winston Zedmore was not a scientist. Yes, he's a Ghostbuster, but he's not a scientist. You could even make an argument that Bill Murray wasn't much of a scientist either. Yeah. Ghostbusters was nominated for an Academy Award for visual effects. It did lose to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, however, which Richard Edlund also worked on, if I'm not mistaken, along with Industrial Light and Magic. But yeah, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, it's scary how much these effects hold up. It's actually pretty scary. Here again, no CGI whatsoever. No CGI. Oh yeah, that line that Bill Murray has, where oh yeah, Mr. Stay Puft is okay. He's a sailor. He lives in New York. We get this guy laid, we won't have any trouble. That was always a huge laugh on Navy ships when I saw Ghostbusters, usually with Caddyshack, because they would play Caddyshack every week when we were at sea. Every single week they would play Caddyshack. I mean, it just got to the point where they were begging me to play movies from my collection because I had a lot more variety and a lot more classics than what they got on those little tapes from the studios. And you know what? I got to agree with Rich Evans that the whole crossing the streams idea is kind of tacked on here. It's kind of tacked on, but look, I mean, but then again, I mean, Mike Stacklasa is also right. And look, the movie's won you over by this time. I mean, it completely won you over. A great, glorious explosion right here. Perfect climax to the action and the story. That's what I'm saying. The horror element here is actually legitimately serious and eerie and scary. And it juxtaposes well with the comedy. It really does. Peck is going to get marshmallowed. I've always liked that. And I think the audience was glad to see Peck finally get the marshmallow dumped all over him in there. Mm. But let me grab. See, so we're going to be doing stripes here when the movie is over. Let me get the link for that. Parts of the visual beauty of this film is that it was on film. It gives it a different texture. 100% agree, Edwin. 100% agree. Okay. Let's see. In just 20 minutes here at 11 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing the Stripes commentary. So we're going to take I mean, this movie, we're going to have like a gap of about 10 minutes. I'm going to take a 10-minute break when this is over. And then all you have to do is go to that link and we will go ahead and start the Stripes audio commentary. But The Elmer Bernstein score, I mean, I just absolutely adore in these final sequences. I mean, this is Dana's theme. It has a very appropriate romantic element to this movie. And, just like I said, very touching. I mean, I'm so happy none of these characters die. I mean, despite all these otherworldly events with gods and spirits and everything, look, it's a comedy. Nobody needs to die in this movie, and I'm just glad that Bill Murray only has like a little bit of marshmallow on him on his shoulder there, or Rick Moranis does too. Actually, yeah. Actually, I'll leave that up. But yeah, Bill Murray, I mean, like I said, I don't blame the man for not wanting to succumb to studio pressure to do a sequel. I just don't blame him. I mean, like I said, he took off acting for 4 years after this, and he would make Scrooged, directed by Richard Donner in 1988, and then he would do Ghostbusters 2 in '89. But then after that, I think some of his best work really comes after that. I mean, Quick Change in 1990, What About Bob in 1991, Groundhog Day in '93. I mean, he was really on a streak. He was really on a streak there. And of course, to close out the movie, we got Ray Parker's very infamous song, "I Am a Drug." No, no, no. I'm just kidding. It's directed by Ivan Reitman, the late Ivan Reitman. Yeah, we'll be talking more about Ivan Reitman during the Stripes commentary, to be honest. But see, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, and here we have our cast. They just walk out with some marshmallow in their hair. I mean, yeah, why not? Dan Aykroyd having a cigarette. Yeah, who you gonna call? Exactly, who you gonna call? I love how they give Sigourney Weaver shotgun there. So, you know, the nice lady who paid us in advance before she became a dog. Exactly. Now, I mean, for all the cast members except for William Atherton, they have their names next to their characters, but when they get to Annie Potts and William Atherton, they're nowhere to be seen almost. Now, like I said, pretty much the entire cast would be back for Ghostbusters 2 in 5 years. But like I said, I don't plan on doing an audio commentary too for that. If you want to listen to a commentary for Ghostbusters 2, just go to Red Letter Media. Just go to Red Letter Media, listen to Mike Stacklasa, Jay Bowman, and Rich Evans, because their commentary for Ghostbusters 2 is about as perfect as you can imagine. Are you watching it on DVD or streaming? I am watching Stripes on Blu-ray. I am watching the theatrical edition, which should be the same cut that's available online when you're streaming it. But I am watching the Blu-ray with the theatrical cut, not the director's edition. Although I will talk about the added scenes for the director's edition when we start talking about it. Ghostbusters written and performed by Ray Parker Jr. Yep. So yeah, like I said, Ghostbusters, needless to say, in 1984, this became a cultural phenomenon. And it's obviously easy to see why. Nice little capper with Slimer there. And Slimer, there was a lot of deleted footage of Slimer for the second movie that never got into the film proper, because one of the things on that Ghostbusters 2 commentary they mentioned is that, they forgot that Slimer isn't in the sequel much. He's just not there. And from what I have heard, he's not even in Afterlife anymore. So I don't know. I just you can't it's like they said, it's a lightning in a bottle. You can't recreate this or even hope to overcome it. It's lightning in a bottle. It just it hit at the right moment at the right time with these original creative ideas and these individuals. Ivan Reitman, Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray. All of them came together at just the right time to make this movie. and it became a massive hit. New York Crew, here we go. I will confess, I've never been to the Ghostbusters firehouse because evidently they still have the Ghostbusters 2 sign still in it as a prop. I've only been to the New York Public Library, but I have not been to the Ghostbusters firehouse, unfortunately. Main title animation by Richard Greenberg and Associates. Yeah, Richard Greenberg did the opening credits for Superman. Here are the visual effects people at Boss Film Studios. All did a terrific job with the visual effects in this movie. Here again, perfectly balanced between the effects and the horror and the comedy and the drama. It all works. It all works beautifully. And this is the Alessi Brothers song, "Saving the Day." But of course, it goes back. Then it goes back to Elmer Bernstein's music for the last few minutes of the credits here. So yeah, just one more time. Like I said, there's the link for the Stripes commentary. So I'll be starting that in approximately 12 minutes. So I will go ahead and go ahead and end the stream right now and cut it off. I hope to see you all for Stripes when that comes up. But I'll wait till the end of the movie. I'll wait till the end of the end credits before. Yeah, I Can Wait Forever, but performed by Air Supply, and Magic performed by Mick Smiley. Ray Parker Jr., the Bus Boys, the Thompson Twins, and Air Supply appear courtesy of Arista Records. And yes, the producers wish to thank the New York Office for Motion Pictures and Television Productions. Yeah. Yeah, this movie became a more iconic New York movie than anything Woody Allen made. Even Manhattan. And here we have our cast. Yeah. Roger Grimsby as himself, Larry King, Joe Franklin, and Casey Kasem. Yeah, they all appeared as themselves in this movie. See, there you go. Jail Guard, played by Reggie Vell Johnson. Reggie Vell Johnson. Of course, he would later be in Die Hard and Family Matters and everything. Yeah. Yeah. I really like him in Family Matters. I actually even prefer him over Steve Urkel on that show. But all right, everybody. Well, tell you what, I will see you all in approximately 12 minutes here for the Stripes audio commentary. See